Hi, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending where you are located. I'm Albertin from EXIN, product owner over here. And today we are going to start the session about Business Agility Expert Hour. So today we're going to talk about how we're going to use Agile in different areas apart from IT. And today we are with three different experts that are going to provide all their thoughts to you. And then, of course, if you have any additional question, you can always drop your question on the right side panel of GoToWebinar menu, call it questions. And then just drop their question over there, that in the end of the webinar of today, then I'm going to address the questions, okay, on your behalf. So just before we start, I just would like to pass through the EXIN portfolio. The EXIN certifications portfolio are divided in security, compliance, and risk, agile principles and culture, tech, mobile, and safeness, business intelligence processes. And today, of course, we're going to focus on the agile principles and culture that is most likely related to the EXIN Agile Scrum program. And then today, we are with three different speakers from different parts of the world. So I'd like to say welcome to Christoph, Maja, and Myles. So I would like to ask you to introduce yourself. Christoph, could you please introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Christoph Johann Stettina. I have a background in product development, used to be with Nokia in heydays. And while working for Nokia in Germany, I really appreciated Nordic management culture. And that led me to move to the Nordics, where I essentially for the first time ran into agile teams in the Norwegian banking sector in 2007, 2008. Since then, I've been really captured by the topic. I got myself a position at the university in Leiden, where I built up an agility lab with a couple of partners. And then I built up the business agility practice at Accenture in the Netherlands, while having a position, an assistant professor position at Leiden University. So essentially, through the university, I'm going to do lots of research around business agility and its impact on operating model, leadership styles, leadership competencies, and topics like that. And through the Accenture arm, I used to run a lot of transformation projects across various clients, various industries. So thanks for the invitation, Ademar. Very pleased to be here with everyone on this call.
Our pleasure, Christoph. Thank you very much to be with us. Maja, welcome. Could you please introduce yourself as well?
Yes, of course. Thank you. I'm very happy to be here, and thank you for inviting me. My name is Maja Kurzyna. I'm Agile Transformation Consultant and Coach. I work for Adaptovate. We are a global company. We help companies embed agile business agile practices all around the world. We are a partner of Boston Consulting Group, so we do those projects together. As far as my background, I have background in consulting and in process improvement, but mainly also in a corporate environment. I spent a large part of my career in a global telecom, which went through agile transformation. So that eventually also led me to a decision to make it my main career. Also, I have a background in psychology. I have a degree in psychology, so I combine all those experiences and different backgrounds to solve issues. Yeah. So thank you for inviting me, and again, happy to be here.
It's our pleasure, Maja. Thank you very much to be over here with us. And I'm gonna try to call Myles, but Myles is facing some issues with his microphone. So I'm gonna try to ask for him.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can, Myles. Yay, you made it. Thank you.
I phoned through on my mobile phone instead of the computer. So
okay.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. I'm sure I was getting everybody's blood pressure up, including my own. As long as you can, so you can hear me. Can you see me? Can you see the video?
Okay, good. I can't say anything now because as my PowerPoint is being used, so I don't see the camera anymore at this point of time, but I presume it is. So Myles, thank you very much to join us. Could you please introduce yourself as well?
Sure. So I think between Maja and myself, we're going to get mixed up today. Who's talking about but it was our names are so similar. So my name is Myles Hopkins. I'm based in Johannesburg in South Africa, and I am the founder and CEO of a company called Be Agile. We focus very much on the two sides of Agile, which to me is the being Agile and the doing Agile. The business agility side, we run a whole lot of workshops around enterprise business agility, OKRs, rapid change management, agile HR, etc. And then we also do what I call the technical agile. So my business partner is the only SAFe program consultant trainer in the whole of Africa, and so we focus on that as well. And then lastly, what I would like to say is that we're very involved in building community in Agile. In fact, we're very fortunate. Just over a month ago, we were awarded the World Agility Foundation Forum Award for building community organizations. And for everybody that's Agile, there's a big global festival in February. It will be the 20th anniversary of the Agile Manifesto. And there's a big festival called Agile 20 Reflect, which is just inviting everybody from all over the world to submit their events, and let's have a global, huge festival over the whole month of February next year.
That's really great to hear. Thank you very much to be with us as well, Myles. Yesterday, I was interviewing Ari van Benekun, that is one of the co-authors of the Agile Manifesto. That was a really great interview. And one of the questions that I asked him, it was about how does he feel about this new anniversary from Agile Manifesto and many more. So soon we're going to publish this interview that was done yesterday. And then I hope you guys enjoy as well. So as soon as this is published, I will let everybody know about. So before we go to our questions, I also would like to say thank you to Johanna, that she was the one bringing everybody together. And as you noticed, we have 3 different speakers with 3 different backgrounds with 3 different countries. Christoph, are you based in the Netherlands, right? Or in Germany?
In the Netherlands, yes.
In the Netherlands. Maja, where are you located at?
I'm located in Warsaw, in Poland.
In Warsaw, Poland. And Myles, you are in South Africa now.
That's correct, yes.
Okay, that's really great. A really mixed group. So guys, if you are prepared, so let's move forward to our first question that is also related to the many years that Agile Manifesto was written. So basically, it's already 20 years since that was written, way back then before in Utah. Since then, the business agility or agile business became more than buzzwords, because as far as I can recall, everything was based on IT. When we used to talk about agile, we were talking about IT using agile. And then we had the groups, waterfall groups, the agile groups. But then somehow agile was picked as the new trendy thing many years ago, and then many other departments were using. Oh, sorry guys. From home, this happens sometimes. But then Agile was picked as the new trendy for many other departments, such as marketing and everything else. But then, what does using Agile practice at all business levels means to you? First, Christoph.
What means agile practice at an enterprise level? What it means? Yeah, I would say maybe to open the question, because for me, agility and business agility is not only about the practices, but it's also about the culture and, let's say, the organizational structure that supports all of it, right? So quite frequently when we speak with agile practitioners, very much this agile mindset is being emphasized and sort of the way of thinking, which is important. But if we look at it from an organizational theory perspective, and if we look at sort of the basic sort of the dimensions that we need to consider, in fact, those are 3, right? So on one hand, we have the cultural components, right? The agile mindset of openness, communication, transparency, and collaboration, and things like that, right? Then we have the agile practices that, in fact, support this mindset. And we have the organizational structure, with the operating models, with the governance impact, and so on. And these three dimensions, they reinforce each other, right? So, so from that perspective, there's a couple of agile practices. So just recently, we ran a study looking into the impact of agile and the manifestation of agile outside of IT, really. And what we see, there's a couple of common practices that we have. The sprint plannings on a team level, the retrospective meetings probably being one of the most important one, because the retrospectives enable us to improve our process and get steadily better. All right, and then we have these similar practices on a program level, on portfolio levels, and even on a enterprise level with the different domains like HR and sales and marketing and so on.
Thank you very much for your reply to this question. Maja, I would like to ask you, what does using agile practice at business level means to you?
Awesome. So when we look at this question, and being 20 years since Agile Manifesto was written, I would like to spend a minute talking a bit about the market and where we are with agility and business agility today, looking from our experience, right? From our experience from the work we do. And I think we can all agree, that Agile is really well established within IT companies, right? It's hard to find a company that delivers software in a waterfall way. And as Agile was initially intended for software development teams, all those kind of unruly teams sitting in the basement, and to protect them from the business people and the clients disturbing them, and so on and so on. Now it all went much, much further, right? I think it's a truth to say that software is eating up the world, and now basically every company is a software company. And it's even more true today during the pandemic. We all struggle with this, right? So I think what we really see here is a cultural change. And today in 2020, the digital transformations are done. Market leaders are software companies, and those digital and IT teams have grown in-house, both in size and in importance and in influence. So they do bring a new agile culture. And I think this is one of the aspects why Agile is doing really well and why companies are going into business agility. And we will deep dive a lot more into what that means in the next questions. But I think very pragmatically, it is very important for the companies to speak the same language and to learn how to support those IT teams and how to support the customers. And probably last but not least, it's all driven by the business environment. So basically customer is in the center, right? It's a user-driven market, and the customers that we work with say, okay, we need to be faster, the competition is stepping on our toes, and so on and so on. And it's a very turbulent global environment. So because of those factors, Agile is doing very well, and companies go into business Agile quite broadly. And when you look at the research, for instance, the last KPMG research surveys, almost 90% of companies say they are already testing or implementing Agile to a degree. 70% say they have an ambition to scale Agile within the next 3 years. So that's a really interesting point we are in, 20 years after the Agile Manifesto. So that's from my side to start.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's really fine. That's really fine. I really liked the answer. It was a well put answer, I would say. Myles, what does using agile practices at business levels means to you?
So we've only got 45 minutes left for this webinar, because I could spend a day just on this particular topic. I think one of the things that really needs to start resonating with organizations, as Maja said, and I think Christoph alluded to as well, this really started in the software teams, in the tech teams, etc. But as Eben Leiborn, who's the head of the Business Agility Institute, says, you can only be as agile as your least agile department. And what he means by that at the end of the day is, let's say, for example, in an organization, you've got a tech team, IT, that is really driving agile practices. if the HR department is not changing the way that they structure the business, the way that they reward the business, the way they performance manage the business, the way that they set up leadership development, if finance is not changing the way they budget, if legal is not changing the way they set up contracts, if procurement is not changing the way they procure, then you will not become an agile business at the end of the day. And agile is not about following a framework or that's what I call a big A agile. Small A agile is those organizations today that were able to very quickly react to what happened with COVID-19 and to build a business for the future. That's agility. How quickly can you anticipate and adapt to your environment? And we need the whole business value chain to be able to drive that at the end of the day. So yes, tech is still leading it in a way, but if the rest of the business, and just the last thing on this, when I talk to HR teams, I said I'm less interested in how you use Agile in your own department in terms of, do you have your own Kanban boards and sprints? I'm much more interested in how you enable the rest of the business to be agile by the policies, procedures, and practices that you put in place for the business. That to me is 90% of your work. Yes, 10% you can use agile in your department to deliver, but I'm much more interested in how you enable agile across the rest of the business. Same with finance, procurement, legal.
It's a very good point, right? Because from that perspective, we cannot just throw everything into one pot, right? We need to consider, okay, what is really this agility that grew from individual, software teams, and then we need to make a distinction, because if we look outside of the software team, if we look into marketing, and if we look into sales and things like that, a lot of agility is enabled, in fact, through software. So one of the distinctions that we need to make here is, okay, are we really looking into agility outside of software? So are we really speaking of a marketing capability that is driven by a software team, or are we really looking at the full marketing team? Right. So in software team, outside software team, and then in enterprise level, right, we also have where we have some of the supporting functions that Myles just mentioned, including procurement, including finance with the funding mechanisms, connection to portfolio management processes, including HR processes, including personal incentives, right, because they all play a role in this.
That's really great. I liked all the answers that you guys provided. I think one complemented the other. Awesome. So let's move forward for our next question. Well, according to your own experience, why and how did you start your own journey in Agile? This time, I will start with Maja.
Thank you. So I think there are, of course, different professional experiences that led to it. I worked for some startups in consulting and process improvement, but the one key experience that led me to this was my corporate experience. I spent 7 years in a global telecom, managing large cross-functional projects in innovations, in sales, in knowledge management, etc., in digital. And soon after I joined, the company started Agile transformation. It was a long process because it was kind of a bottom-up movement, started in IT. It didn't get much traction first, but the company slowly changed the ways of working. As we started a digital transformation, it was followed up then by a proper Agile transformation that included not the entire company, but some of the marketing and sales and digital part, and of course the IT part. And I ended up being a product owner on an Agile team. And I must say it was a really profound experience for me in my career, because we know all what telecoms are like. They are large and siloed and hierarchical, very slow. We had like 15 million clients, and we were in a complicated relationship with every single one of them. When you sell internet, it's complicated. You have a 2-year contract. A lot of things can go wrong. So it was a difficult environment for this Agile change. And I've seen probably about 15, as I counted, organizational changes while I was there. But this was the first time when I actually saw that it changed the way people worked and interacted and solved problems and prioritized. And it was profound. And I thought, if this can work in this crazy and chaotic environment, then this is good stuff. So eventually I moved to helping other companies becoming more agile. And I think what's really personally in it for me, I really want to create amazing places for people to work, you know, and it's amazing when it brings profits, but also when it makes customers happy and people have great culture to deliver that value. So that's kind of the story, how I ended up in Agile.
That's really great. I noticed, like, based on the background that when you were introducing yourself, that we were trying to create like something like enjoyable to people. That's really great. Thank you very much, Maja. Myles, why and how did you start your journey in Agile?
Yeah, thank you. So I started my consulting business almost 20 years ago now. And most of that time was actually as an HR consulting business, and predominantly around the areas of performance management, balance scorecard, HR strategy, but particularly organizational design. So I became very well known in the African market for the ability to help organizations to align their organizational design to their business operating models and then to their strategy. I was doing a project in around about 2017 when I was doing another one of these hierarchical structures. I was most probably writing my 7,000th role profile / job description, and I don't exaggerate when I say that's how many I've written. And I suddenly started questioning what it was what value I was adding to the client. Because let's say in a job description, you have 15 outputs that you drive. Those days we weren't even doing outcomes. So we got 15 outputs. And let's say, for example, an individual is really good at 12 of those outputs, but not so good at 3. The manager is going to spend more time managing the 3 they're not good at than the 12 that they are good at. And let's say I take it even a step further and say of the 12 they're good at, 8 of them they love doing, whereas 4 of them they're not that keen on doing. So I started saying, well, what if I could start getting employees to focus on the 8 outputs that they are good at? Won't I raise the employee engagement level, the performance level, the efficiency, effectiveness, etc., etc.? Started investigating cross-functional teams, and then came across Agile, and it really, the whole Agile setup really interested me. I'm the type of person that once I get interested, I jump right in. So I immediately did a safe program consultant workshop, which is, you know, if you're only just going into Agile, one would not recommend you do an SPC because it's highly intense, 4 days. And then I also did an enterprise business agility strategist workshop in the USA. And I very quickly came to the realization that whilst this was about a framework and a process and a set of tools and ceremonies, it was much more about people, and how people interacted and the culture of the organization, how you put together the teams. And then I was able to say, okay, well, maybe I can bring my 2 passions together, which is the passion for HR and the passion for Agile, and blend those together. And that's where the journey really started. And since then, I've become a very broad business agility expert, but I still focus a lot on helping organizations transform their HR departments to become a lot more involved in the Agile transformation.
Oh, thank you very much, Myles. It's really interesting that you didn't came from IT, you came from the HR viewpoint of view, and then you embraced Agile. That's a different perspective, because it's so common for us to meet people from the IT and then they start to embrace Agile. But the other way around, it's more difficult, I would say. It's a different profile. It's not so common. Well, thank you very much for sharing your experience.
Pleasure.
Christoph, why did you start and how your Agile journey? Tell us.
Yeah, very good question. You know, I would say probably similar to what Maja and Myles also just shared, right? It was, you know, I used to run a lot of different types of projects. I participated in an MBA type of program. We're familiar with, you know, the standard sort of project management approaches. which used to sound quite theoretical, if you ask me, right? And then at some point in time, when I had the first sort of check-ins with these agile teams in the banking sector in Norway, it felt like, so this is something that actually feels good, right? I mean, project portfolio management and all these things, it's not about boxes and it's not about abstract sort of processes. It's about people that need to conduct this work, right? And I really felt like, so these teams had taught me in a very excited way about, you know, the special practices that they had, if they would work over hours, or how they could improve their work, not only to, you know, be more effective, but also have more fun as a team, more energy, right? Which in the end also leads to success. So it's really something that triggered me. And then essentially I started up this agility lab, started helping organizations, and you know, in that sense, many challenges that we can see sort of from that perspective is also related to the growth of this maturity in a sector today, right? So quite often it would start with things like, okay, I think our software delivery capability is not working, IT is not working, right? We don't see the value, customers are not happy, our people are getting burnout, something is wrong here, right? So something is wrong with our delivery capability, right? Other questions might be related to the fact, so I don't have a good, so just imagine you are a CEO or a department head, and you would get questions like, so I don't have an overview of the portfolio. We are having lots of projects, but how do these projects really relate to the resources that we have, how do these projects relate to the strategic themes that we set for ourselves for the upcoming years? How do these projects in the portfolio, are we really doing the right things here, right? What's the value for my organization? Do I set the right priorities? Am I doing the right things? So this quite often how it starts, right? And this is then based on the nature, for example, that in waterfall projects, when connected to a portfolio, they develop an own life, and it's very difficult to steer on those, and things like that. Yeah.
Thank very much for sharing as well, Christoph. It's really nice, like when you tapped into the subject, like are we delivering the right value to the business? Because I think this is like a struggling point for many organizations in the past and even nowadays, that they are not so sure if they're doing the right things and getting the right outcome from the investments that are being done with their resources in general, not only IT, but in general way. And especially now that we are facing a big challenge to keep going with businesses, I think many of them, they are thinking about, okay, are we doing the right things, yes or no? And then I'm glad to see that all you three guys are promoting different ways to work to increase the business value and also bring joy to people while doing their own work. Really nice to hear about that. So next question, what are the challenges you encountered in your agile journey, Myles? What did you have any struggles? What happened when you were in your agile journey, and then you said sometimes, yeah, I'm double guessing myself, or how does it feel to you?
Okay, so look, I think since I moved into this field, I definitely haven't double guessed whether I'm in the right field and I'm working with the right sort of mindset and thinking. You know, I think one of your earlier questions was about buzzwords, and you know, some people talk about agile being a buzzword. It's only a buzzword if you don't have the agile mindset. So if you are really being agile with a small a, then it definitely isn't a buzzword. So what is one of the biggest, now I want to use this biggest challenge that I've had in my agile journey, and I'm sure it's a similar challenge that many people face this year, is that at the beginning of March, we had a very good pipeline of work that was coming in, but that full pipeline was all about, you know, in-person workshops, in-person consulting. And somewhere early in March, our president in South Africa announced a 5-week lockdown, meaning nobody could go to work. You know, you could literally go to the supermarket at a certain time and buy very limited items. And overnight, our whole pipeline of work was wiped out to literally zero. So from, a few $100,000 to zero work overnight. And we had, and I'd imagine there were so many other businesses that faced a very similar issue. And one of the things that we had to do, which is what I guess most businesses have had to do today, is to say, okay, our world has changed forever. A lot of people talk about the new normal. I talk about the new abnormal. There's nothing normal about the world we live in today. And how do I need to adapt my business to be able to adapt to the new world? What are the new requirements that our customers and our clients and our employees have? And how do I best adapt to those? How do I anticipate what's going to happen? And how do I best adapt to that? One of the things, though, that was stuck in my mind at that time, so suddenly, just having all of our work wiped off the table, was that whenever we were trying to sell Agile into businesses, we were looking for two types of businesses. One that had a CEO that very much believed in Agile and wanted to drive an Agile transformation, or two, a company that had a burning platform. Well, now all of a sudden, every single company in the world had a burning platform. And so therefore, the world of agility took a big leap forward in that we were now able to very quickly talk to clients and say, look, the world has changed. This is the way we're changing our engagement model to meet your particular requirements. We know it will take time, but walk the journey with us so that we can all be better off in 2021. So 2020 has been a tough year in that we've slowly had to crawl our way back up the mountain, but literally 2021 is going to be an amazing year because we were able to quickly understand the changes that were happening and to adapt to those and to start looking at new ways of servicing our clients, exactly what every business should do.
Yeah, I think we all are aiming for a better 2021. 2020, I think it was slightly challenging, I would say.
What did I say the other day? The longest 5 years of my life has been 2020.
Yeah, definitely.
What
I have to.
What we see with 2020 is the organization that prepared from a business agility perspective, in fact, benefit from it, right? That's one of the things. For those that did not sort of take the time, they have a slightly harder time.
Yeah.
Definitely. But Christoph, did you find any major challenge when you were moving forward to your agile journey?
Yeah, I would say the challenges that we know when moving towards agile are reiterated in many reports. If you look at if we look at the state of agile reports, if we look at scientific research, or also if we look at the business agility report that Myles also referred to, that I had the pleasure to also contribute to this year. The challenges are mostly in line with let's say leadership challenges, so leadership related challenges, structural challenges, and cultural challenges. While cultural challenges in the end also connect to the leadership sphere, because the leadership style and our behavior, right, and also especially the behavior of the people above us and our bosses is copied within the organization, right? Which is in fact, while quite often when we say, okay, we have a mind chain challenge, organizational sort of culture challenge, quite often relates to the leadership behavior components, right? So if you look at these three types of challenges, right, then what comes there is from a leadership perspective, we have the leadership style, our competencies. How do I behave, right? Do I immediately punish people if they don't follow the things that I want them to follow, or do I encourage them? Do I empower them? Do I give them the right sort of support in order to be able to grow as teams and so on, right? It's sponsorship, it's vision, right? If you don't have sponsorship, all right, actually enabling, trainings, change initiatives, people don't have the right tools in their hands to be able to be agile, right? But also vision, right? Our leaders need to be able to communicate where they're heading to, right? To create organizational focus, that they know, okay, this is the place where we want to move as an organization from a product perspective, business perspective, but also from an inner working perspective. If we move towards the structural challenges, we very much look into the operating models, the organization of the structure. Quite frequently, we hear about silos, right? But there will be always silos. The question is, how well is your organizational structure enabled, is allowing for business agility? And how well are these organizational structures linked to each other, right? Do we think in value streams? Is our organization structured around the products and services that developed, or are they organized around, let's say, skill silos, as we used to do this in the past, right? Which we know from the industrial age, because it was about unskilled workers, so let's just put them in skill silos and we can monitor them. That becomes less important for us today, because now we need to pay attention to the products and services that we create. Right, so in line with that, it's the management sort of incentives and things like that, the alignment, the funding structures, and from a cultural perspective, really mindset, culture, and leadership sort of that leads to it. And really, I could spend hours also looking at specific sort of examples of the transformation projects that I used to deliver, on a scale from anything between 20 to maybe 1,000 or 2,000 employees, but I think in rough lines it's probably a good summary. Yeah.
Great, thank you very much, Christoph. I totally agree with you. I remember when we were talking now about the knowledge/skills silos, you brought back many memories from my head when I used to work divided like this. It was strange if I compare to the time that we are in right now and how do we work. Thank you very much for this comparison. Bring this back. It's interesting to see. Maja, what were your challenges when moving to your agile journey?
Well, that's a very interesting question, and I totally agree with Myles. 2020 was a ride for all of us, but when it comes to my personal career in Agile, I think that the main turbulences are yet to come. I've been really enjoying this adventure. But when I think of challenges, and especially the challenges that we encounter on projects with clients, I agree with Christoph here. A lot of them are outside the scope of Agile. It's either leadership challenges or business challenges, or in general, human challenges. And the difficulty is some of them are really hard to solve. There's no easy answers, or sometimes there are answers, but it's still hard. And to give you an example, so when you put Agile ways of working in place, one of the great things that happens is transparency, right? So when you look at the employee satisfaction research, lack of transparency is one of the key factors that really demotivates people. But then it's like turning a flashlight in the dark room, right? So you turn on the light and there is an elephant. And some people are not happy and they want to turn the light off, most of people start solving problems, but those problems are there. And what's fascinating for me about this work is whatever country we go to, or we work with different industries in different continents, there are problems that happen everywhere. And I will refer to also something that Christoph mentioned in the previous question, deprioritization. In most companies, when you go, everything is super important. Even if it's not bringing value, it's still super important. And there are ways to overcome it, right? Like you can think how to set more clear goals on OKRs, how to collect data to have more fact-based discussions, and how to facilitate those discussions with the leaders to make sure that everybody focuses. But at the end of the day, it's hard, it's painful, because the human nature is that, we like to believe that time is flexible, we are invincible, we can achieve everything. And then on the business side, you have those projects that already the company invested a lot of money in, and now you have to admit that they didn't work, and you have to admit to failure, and there is a sunk cost fallacy. So it's hard and it's a bit scary. And some companies do this exercise better, and some of them do it struggle. When you start Agile teams and you see that people have 5 or 10% of their time dedicated to, let's say, a strategic objective they work on, they're not going to be moving very fast. But those who really have some discipline and focus on the right things, they really change the way they work, and they really start delivering products and services faster to the market. So it's a challenge worth taking. But yeah, maybe I'll finish here because we still have a lot of questions to answer.
No worries. I really liked the way that you complemented both of the answers. I think totally makes all the sense, and I loved the comparison with the flashlight and then in the dark, and then suddenly you see the white elephant over there, just a problem that no one was seen before. And no one would like to see, maybe sometimes. Well, thank you very much. So let's move forward for our next question, and then I would like to ask you to be more precise with your answer due to timing constraints. We have only basically more 15 minutes to go, and we have some other questions to go through. So now, you either advise or work on implementing agile practices at different companies. What do you think about the state of companies in terms of adopting these practices? Christoph.
Yeah, it's a very question, right? It's a very good question. So, yeah, one thing one assumption we could make is that companies that are more client-facing, because they are more client-facing, they are closer to business, they are easier to receive or have stronger incentive to receive this client feedback and act upon it. That those could be stronger. In the end, sort of looking across industries, I'm not really sure if so obviously we can see sort of the maturity if we look at it geographically, right? One thing that we know is that let's say organizational culture and sort of country geographical culture needs to be connected. So what we see from a geographical sort of implementation of agile methods, that let's say countries where the country culture is closer, more compatible with agile culture, that these countries are generally a bit closer or further in adoption, right? What we see from a European perspective, the Nordics, some of the smaller countries like Netherlands, Baltics, and so on. Some of the bigger ones, and so on and so on. Industry, I have seen really big differences across the industry. So while in general I would say the trend is okay, product-oriented organizations with a strong client-facing role, right? That they can be assumed to be a little bit more mature. I see really in different industrial sectors, also comparing at the public sector, there is parts of the organizations that are much more mature than others. So yeah, while one could assume trends, I'm not sure if I can sort of see this based on my experience, because I have to admit I have seen public sector organizations that have been very mature, very much so very effective, very much in the agile culture. I have seen network energy companies being very mature. I have seen organizations that are product oriented that have been very mature, but I have also seen some of those that although they should be very agile because they would benefit a lot from it, where the maturity was not so strong.
I understand, but the good thing though is we are seeing even governments moving forward towards the agile mindset and practice. We as EXIN, we saw already even governments over here from Europe investing a lot in the agile transformation of their companies, and it was really good to see that happening somehow. But now I need to move forward to Maja. What do you think about the state of the companies about adopting agile practice?
Right. So speaking from observation and experience, from our point of view, agile is now present everywhere. So we would probably say that banks and telecoms are a bit more forward, and they are now typically scaling agile in a lot of those companies. But we also work with government companies, as you mentioned, with oil and gas, kind of oil fields, healthcare, and now even schools as pro bono project. Now in COVID reality, but even before COVID, but in COVID, it's even more relevant for everyone. And also very different regions, also Europe, Southeast Asia, etc., etc. We even get quotes from Jamaica. So I think The Agile is present everywhere, and as far as maturity, every company that we go to already has some pockets of Agile, or they are at the process of scaling it. And when we talk about business Agile, usually they are pressured to start because of a clear strategic objective. They are trying to implement a strategy. So they say that we need to deliver product faster, we need to innovate, we need to be closer to clients, we need to change the culture, etc. So like it's pretty compatible with the reports that I've been reading, that about 80–90% of the companies are already testing Agile to a degree, and we're talking about the big companies. Just one thought about the challenges. There are different challenges that happen, but Christoph mentioned cultures. It's interesting to see, let's say, mindset change in different companies, and also when it comes to a traditional, more command and control style of management. And I think as hard as it is to change the mindset, it's also very hard to come back to the old ways. And we had this kind of a project where in Asia, where the Agile was introduced in the bank, and teams were given quite a lot of autonomy. And then the management changed, and there was an attempt to kind of come back to the old ways, and it was a backlash. And people said, okay, we are used to this style and we can even adapt, but once we tried something new, we don't want to come back to it. And just people would quit their jobs. So I think it's an also interesting point about those transformations. Once you start them, they happen, and it's you sometimes it's hard to come back to the old ways.
I can imagine. I really can imagine that. Myles, what do you think about the states of companies that are adopting Agile? Are they really doing good? How do you see this? They increase the maturity in the delivery. What are your thoughts on this matter?
I'm going to keep it fairly short, and I'm not even going to refer to Agile here. I think Rita McGrath has mentioned as well that companies are working with outdated management techniques. So if you have a look, there's something called Martek's law. And what Martek's law says that the speed of innovation and technological change has been exponential, meaning that we are, every single day, it's just rising exponentially. But the way that organizations manage their companies has not changed a lot since the 1990s. So we're still wanting companies that are, even though they say they're agile, they still want to do the whole requirements gathering thing. They're not really changing. So we've got to get companies to unlearn a whole lot of things before they can learn the new ways and the better ways of doing things. And I'm going to use one example here. It's something that I talk about quite a lot, and it's around performance management. So if we are an agile company and our teams get up every day in a daily stand-up and they look at their Kanban boards and they show where they're progressing on their backlogs, every 2 weeks we do a demo, every quarter we do quarterly planning, why the heck should we be doing performance management? On a daily basis, I can see how we're performing as an organization. But when you ask the business, but shouldn't we do away with performance management, they start trying to defend why they need performance management. And in many instances, organizations almost need to take a 180-degree turn on some of their old practices and bring in new practices that they may not be comfortable with. But it's those practices that are going to drive companies forward. And put it, it's no use just taking scaled agile and putting it into your business if you're not going to change the way that you budget, you're not going to change the way that you lead, you're not going to change the way you do organizational design. So companies need to change the way that they've managed over the last 30 years and start adapting that to the technological change that is happening across the world.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Myles.
Perhaps one more addition, very brief addition to the previous question, to make it maybe even more tangible, right? So in a recent study, we looked into the maturity of these practices across several levels in these organizations. And when I look at the market in the Netherlands and across Europe, I would say, yes, it's about 90% of organizations that have a strong strategic IT capability implemented agile way on team level. Various maturity levels, but about 90% of organizations doing this. What I see now is that about 40% of these organizations manage to get agile methods on a tactical layer with program delivery, right? Sort of large-scale programs. And about 10% of these organizations actually manage to connect those even further to the strategic level, to the portfolio level. This is something that I can see happening on the market. So there's still lots of work to do. Yes, we have agility on the team level. 90% of organizations are applying this at various maturity levels, but looking at the programs, at portfolios, and the further enterprise sort of supporting functions, lots of work to do.
I can imagine.
I'm sorry,
Please.
just to add to this, I even saw some reports saying that it's only 10% who scaled, but they all, a lot of companies have ambition to do it over the next couple of years. So we will really see how this will go for them.
We get lots of questions on agile portfolio management, right?
Yes, definitely. Now, I think I have an intriguing question, because all the time when we hear about Agile, it's associated with Scrum, XP, Kanban, DSTM, TDD, and many others. But I would like to get like a really concise answer from you for this answer, basically a yes or no and why short answer. To use Agile, especially outside of the IT, basically in the business field, marketeers, HR, educational, finance, is all these methodologies need to take place, or no, it's not a need to have like a major agile transformation happening inside the companies? Maya, starting with you.
I love that question. I will answer briefly and from a different angle. I would say never ever did that happen to us. That the customer, the business customer who wants to do business agile came and said, "Hi guys, we would like to hire you to have a new framework, you know, some new jargon and some rules, and we want a coach to impose those rules." You know, that never happened. Like they always come and say, you know, we need to collaborate better. We don't know how, help us, you know, how to break those silos, how to make customer in the center, and etc., etc. Some customers even say, you know, can you please kind of even avoid Scrum terminology because we have bad experiences. But having said that, last sentence, I think frame is necessary for people to self-organize around, and it's just common sense. You can't deliver projects without some kind of a frame. We usually start with a very basic approach, right? And then we develop as we go, but there are some non-negotiables that need to be there.
I can imagine. I understand. Thank you very much, Maya. Myles, do you agree with Maya or no? You have a different perspective as well.
I think I agree. I agree with Maya. I think at the end of the day, our company runs scaled agile projects. However, we always talk about that we don't drink the Kool-Aid. In that, what I mean by that is if somebody is already using some other tools, techniques, ceremonies that is working for them, then that's much more important than sticking to a particular framework and being religious about that. So it just comes back, and this last thing I'm going to say about that, I keep on talking about the difference between doing agile and being agile. Doing agile is when you follow a recipe, step-by-step recipe, but you may not eventually be agile. And being agile is about being able to anticipate and adapt to your market around you to be able to deliver to your customers quicker than your competitors.
Great, thank you very much, Myles. Christoph.
Yeah, so while I did see organizations that really fully wanted to reinvent the wheel, including full terminology, full concepts, what we know is that organizations that pick a framework as a starting point, and consciously mean starting point, they are successful and they are much more happy with the transformation.
Great. So basically, the main giveaway from this answer is definitely organizations, they don't need all those methodologies. They need a frame, a guidance, and then, of course, changing the mindset and the culture of the company. Am I correct?
May I just say something about it? It depends how you look at it. I would say customers don't think they need a framework, and it's like someone who wants to lose weight. You know, I just want to lose weight. I don't want to exercise and, and you know, and be on the diet. So this is probably an interesting discussion, you know, that we could have. But
I think we could have like at least got more 2 hours only in this question, debating on.
Yeah. You need to ask yourself as an organization, do I want to create a framework? Do I want to be a framework company, or do I deliver business, right?
Yeah,
that's great. But now I really would like to, I really need to move forward for the next question, and then after this question I'm going to open I'm gonna take a look on the questions that the audience sent to us. So I'd like to ask you about like sometimes we're hearing in the market the term OKR, that are mainly objectives and key results. How does it differ from the famous KPIs? Is it like a new way to measure up the agile outcomes, or product outcome, or service outcome? What it is about? So at this time, we really need to be concise in the answer. So I'm going to start with Myles.
okay, so in my organization, I actually refer to them as outcomes rather than objectives, but they're the same thing. And at the end of the day, if I'm looking at, there's two parts to it: outcome, key result. The outcome is, let's say, for example, I'm going to develop a new website. The immediate question I must ask myself is, so what? If I'm going to develop a new website, what is it that I want to get out of that? Do I want to push up my customer engagement? I want to push up my customer retention. I want to get more customers, because that's an outcome at the end of the day. It's about driving a particular business outcome, and then the key results are measurable in terms of numbers or percentages or timelines, the results that I'm looking for in terms of that. So develop a new website is the outcome. If I can then break that down into, at the end of the day, I'm going to increase my customer retention by 15%. I'm going to improve my my net promoter score by 8%, etc., etc. So we are driving actual business value. If I was just to say develop a new website, that is more an output than an outcome. But if I attach that to key results, it can then become an outcome. So it's about actually measuring business deliverables rather than activity.
Okay, Christoph.
Very good question, and it essentially leads to the fact we have agile practice and one mindset. If there is no match, it's not going to work, right? So the same thing we have with OKRs. We can apply OKRs in a fantastic way, being wrong, right? If we don't use the right mindset, how we do this, we can apply OKRs on an individual level, really doing micromanagement, right? So usually, if we want to use OKRs to further support the connection to vision, we need to be better on connecting these OKRs to strategic goals. That's where I see a lot of organizations struggling, and that's usually we would bring additional practices to support these OKRs, right? Creation of value trees, for example, to connect to these high-level strategic objectives, like Myles mentioned.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you very much, Christoph. Maja.
Yeah, I think I'll just add one short point to this, because a lot about OKRs have been said. I think they can be very, very useful if done correctly. And just to focus on a couple of benefits, you know, they are very useful, not just for managers, but really they serve the employees, because they guide a decision and they give focus. And what's great about them, they don't have to be cascaded down through the bureaucratic process, but when all the OKRs are transparent on the company level, every team can ask a question: what can we do to contribute to those organizational goals, and create their own OKRs as the team, you know? And but to do that properly, you also need to have the right environment. For instance, if you want your OKRs to be stretch goals, you probably need to have some environment of trust and safety when people are okay to take risks. So there is a lot of great learnings about OKRs, and if somebody doesn't do them, I think it's totally worth it to do it.
But does it require like a level, a great level of maturity from the organization, or not necessarily? One thing is not attached to the other.
It's like most things in agile. At the end of the day, you're going to start off somewhere, and you're going to get better at it as you go along. You're going to mature. So, you know, I don't think you shouldn't try and get 100% accurate right up front, because then you're going to spend months trying to do that. start somewhere and just improve upon them as you go along.
Exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
as long as you have this continuous improvement mindset, which is then very important, right? Very good, Myles. Yeah.
Yeah. Got it. Thank you very much, guys. So now, just before we start the questions and answers, I'm going to pass really fast. I just would like to show this up to you, that these are like the models from the EXIN Agile Scrum certification, whereby we have the foundation for those that doesn't understand anything about Agile. I'd like to start off in this program, followed by the Scrum Master and Product Owner. And now we are launching the 2nd of November, the Agile Business Profession, that is the Agile certification and training for those that are non-IT professionals that would like to use and understand Agile in different departments and or areas apart from IT. And the list and the last and the top of the program is the Agile Coach for those that would like to become an Agile coach and implement Agile in their organizations. So now I'll take a look in the questions over here. So if you have any question, please drop your question in the questions tab, because then I can pick up your question. So the first question that we have, should Agile mindset and practice motivate employees? Is there a risk if we get it wrong to demotivate employees? What should we avoid? Any good thoughts on this?
I would say right communication and vision, that these Agile practices are there to help them. It's there to make their lives better, more effective, but also people are more in charge of the work, right? One of the things that we see is that employee engagement rises, right? So it's definitely not something that should be forced upon people, but in general, it helps, right? I guess that should be motivation enough.
Absolutely, and to build on that, I would say that not to be afraid, because what's really great about Agile is that you can adapt and improve as you go. If you make a mistake, you're not going to stick to it forever, maybe for 2 weeks, and then you will correct. So I think the risk, if the implementation is done with common sense, step by step, it's really low. So I would still go for it.
Yeah, and I think also with the most of the people in these businesses are knowledge workers, and knowledge workers don't like being told every step of the way how to do things. Steve Jobs and Lee Iacocca both said, why do I hire fantastic people and then tell them what to do? So as long as we are creating that psychological safety and that environment where they can, deliver and innovate, then people are going to love it. But the minute you start back with your command and control leadership, then you're going to break the back of what you've built so far.
Thank you very much. And then there's a question over here. You talk about OKRs and prioritization. What are the easy steps so you can start prioritizing correctly, I would say? Do you have any tips?
So there's many different ways of doing prioritization, including the Moscow, but one that is most probably used the most, even though it is from some people won't use it because it comes out of the scaled agile as something which is called weighted short job first, which is really looking at the business value that you are going to deliver and dividing that by the effort required to deliver that business value, and to sort of give, and I'm talking at a very high level. There's a small formula. It's not really a difficult formula to work out how best to prioritize that we can deliver the biggest value in the shortest possible time.
Yeah, the biggest challenge that I see there is, in fact, with the first part, with defining the value. What I see a little bit that it's quite difficult for organizations on the strategic, let's say, portfolio, but even on a program level, to define, okay, what is it that I expect back from in terms of functionality? That can be monetary, it can be strategic, it can be knowledge, it can be assets, right? But it's quite difficult for people in our organizations. So I think that's really a skill that needs to be emphasized, to come up with this business hypothesis statement, right? So if this is a piece of functionality that 10 teams, 10, 50 teams are going to work for the upcoming quarter of a year, right? It's a massive amount of money that we can really well quantify. Does this correlate to the expected value that we're expecting to receive back from functionality, right? And what I see a little bit happening in practice, that these type of business cases, right, even for large sort of project implementations, Oracle, SAP, millions and millions, even for those, sometimes these business cases are on shaky business, on shaky ground. And I think we really need to start exercising and looking at this value and trying to monetize it on much lower sort of portfolio and tactical layers.
Okay, Maja,
Only
do you like
truly set the right priorities?
Sure. Maja, do you like to complement with something?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's really about having a first starting with clear goals and clear strategy, clear goals where we want to get, and then asking question, how can we translate it into the programs and projects and initiatives? And when we put teams in place, what are the objectives of those teams? This is usually on a practical level, very hard question. And just a very practical tip that we often do when there is still a struggle is just to collect data evidence, because once we start doing this, we make the business as usual transparent. Often the leadership is surprised at what the teams are doing. So having a fact-based discussion here is really, really helpful.
And this type of business mindset to get it all the way towards the team. So even there, right, if they start thinking along, okay, what is this the impact? Are we really doing the right things? Are we measuring it, right? Does this make sense? So it should not be only, this value should not only be coming from the product managers, from the portfolio managers, from our business sort of owners, but even on team level, this awareness needs to be there.
Thank you. And then now I'm going to address the last question of the whole session. So, is Agile applicable to all projects, or no? This is a myth. It cannot be used to any of the projects. It's a tricky one.
I'm gonna put my head on the block first here. So I think when you say, can it be applied to all projects, I would say no. If you were to say, can it be applied to all businesses, I could say yes. But why am I saying that? So let me use an example for a mining on a mining company. If we're sinking a shaft that is for a new mine, we would more than likely not be trying to do 2 weekly demos and and pivoting and iterations, etc. We would more than likely stick to the traditional project management for that. However, in a mining business, because mining, I think, I don't know if it was Christoph or Maja right at the beginning said, I think it was Christoph who said every business is now, a technology business. In the mining industry, we are looking at a whole lot of technological changes that are helping us mine better. Now, in those projects, you could use Agile in terms of developing the Internet of Things, the various things that we use in mines. So I would say not every project is an Agile project.
Yeah.
Would any of you would like to complement?
Yes, sure. Just a couple of thoughts. I think it's a great question, and there are a couple of things. Well, I would say that if you have a project there's no changes happening, there's no turbulences, you really need to. It's simple. You know how to deliver it, and you don't need a lot of collaboration and problem solving. You can probably use any kind of method to do it. There is no challenge there, right? So it's not like it's mandatory to always use Agile. However, I think elements of Agile can be used everywhere, and the reality is there is not a lot of projects like that these days that are so 100% predictable. And even if they are, like when we work, for instance, on oil fields, right, and we work with engineers and we set up Kanban teams or Agile teams, we do use elements of it, because it turns out that even if you design pipelines, people still don't talk to each other, they still don't collaborate, and they still don't solve problems together. So I see a benefit, a value added there, even in the industries where you would not really think of them in the first place.
Nice.
So it depends.
Okay.
Yeah, consulting answer. It depends.
Great.
We published a report sort of looking at these enablers for allowing agile methods to work across different sort of types of projects and different types of industries. So I can also share the link with the participants maybe afterwards. But so it's summarizing a little bit what Myles and Maja said, right? So essentially, right, agility is about continuous feedback being embedded, right? So in that sense, the product or service that we're developing must allow us to embed this feedback, right? Otherwise, it does not make sense, right? If we would, obviously, for example, while designing a bridge, really expensive, large construction project, we might be able to run iterations while in a design phase. But who would build up a bridge, for multiple millions, saying like, I don't like this bridge, so this is my feedback. Can we tear this down and make a new one, right? But at the same time, we see that in many industries, the development process becomes more flexible. In hardware development, for example, we got technologies like programmable logic and prototyping techniques, which allows us to embed this feedback in a more frequent way, right? So there is a trend towards more agility across the fields, but there's a couple of enablers. Yeah.
Great. Well, guys, I would like to say thank you very much for all your answers, all your time. And I have to say that we are 15 minutes past the scheduled time to end this webinar. And still, all the audience is still connected with us, which is incredible. So you guys did like a tremendous and wonderful job. So on behalf of EXIN, I would like to say thank you very much to be part of this panel session. And then, of course, we would like to see you more with us, and then probably in a short time you're going to plan more events online, and then we can present more content, because just based on these final sessions, then I could have at least 100 different ideas about what to do next in terms of subjects that we can discuss together as well. So thank you very much again and again and again. So if you'd like to say anything else before you go, please, the floor is yours. I'm gonna call your name so then you can say something. Christoph.
Yeah, I think it shows how excited people are, convinced people are about this topic, right? That, we run 50 minutes of our time and we could probably run another hour of our time, right? So yeah, let's maybe plan this in for another time. So thank you very much. Very pleasant also towards Maja and Myles. Great conversation. Nice to be part of the panel.
Maja.
Yes, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to meet you and be a part of it. It was really enjoyable. So looking forward to next webinar, the next conversations, either as a speaker or a listener.
Thank you very much. Myles.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ademar. And also wanted to thank Christoph and Maja for their great insights, to thank the audience for being part of this. It is amazing how this topic is becoming so much more interesting. Last week, I was actually doing a webinar with the students at Moscow State University, who have never really even heard of Agile before, but we're so interested in learning more. So, this is definitely a topic that people are going to be much more interested in going forward. So thank you for the opportunity, and thank you again to Christoph and Maja and to the audience.
Thank you. So guys, thank you very much. And now is the time that unfortunately we have to say goodbye. So have a great day ahead of you, and then keep yourself safe as well. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.